Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Monday, February 19th, 2024. And this is episode 866 of Living Free in Tennessee. And it is a Monday show. Yes, it is a Monday show that was supposed to be pre recorded. And I just went to drop the audio into the like the podcasting thing so that it could be released on my website, and I looked up at my mic and the button is not on, which means I recorded an entire episode in mute earlier, which is different than the technical glitch where my computer just like shoots it to my TV, right? So life lesson here is always double check your audio is working if you're going to pre-record an episode. Luckily, this episode was supposed to come out at 2 p.m. So we're just going live and we're going to re-record the thing. If you are on the live right now, do me a favor, just put out on socials that we're live. Yeah, and I'll just finish doing my makeup while you do that because I just sat down. Like I'm going to produce the audio. It'll go out at 2 p.m. and everything will be perfect. And then I realized, I spelled introvert wrong. And for those of you who are like twitching because my thumbnail has it spelled wrong, I know I spelled it wrong. I decided to not let the perfect be the enemy of the good because I'm just going to go live and record this. So here's what we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about building community because people always ask me about building community, and I'm going to talk about the advent of the strong network we've built in Tennessee and throughout the country actually over time, so that you can understand how that went, but from the perspective of an introvert, because I'm an introvert. I'm an introvert who can't spell introvert apparently off the top of my head in the morning when I'm writing my show notes, but I digress. Okay, before we do that though, I want to talk about our featured event of today's show, and that is the Freedom Cell Challenge. So right now at Live Free Academy, you can go sign up for a free event on building community, which is what today's episode is about, unless it just stopped. Did it just stop? I don't know if it just stopped. I hope it didn't stop because that could just be like FML, StreamYard, where are you? Oh, good. Whew. For a second there, I was like, of course it's going to end. This is like that time my jacket got in my way and I had to fight it off. Yeah, that happened once. When I first started doing live streams, I couldn't get my jacket off, and all of a sudden it was really hot in my office. Yeah, that was great. So anyway, it's the Freedom Cell Challenge. The Freedom Cell Challenge is a 5-day event for free, all about building community, getting involved with your Freedom Cell networks. And the cool thing about Freedom Cell networks is that they don't tell you what to do with your cell. They're like, let's organize, let's do whatever we want to do, but we're not going to tell you how to do it. It's also an effort to get out of the fear of the news cycle and into proactively building your better life so that we're stronger together. I love the work that John Bush has done with that. And if you use the link that's in the description of this video or in the show notes, that'll take you straight to the Freedom Cell Challenge. And if you click on that link and sign up and you tune in tomorrow at 11:30, guess who you're going to see presenting? That's right, Nicole Sauce. I'm going to speak about myself in the third person, man. Yeah, so I'll be speaking with Brad Bleasdale just about some of the things we have going on in Tennessee, because something that's really cool that's happened here is we've got Freedom Cells, we've got MAGs, we've got LFTN and SOE networks, we've got the Homestead networks, and we're all working together because we all care about one thing, and that's letting you be you and us not getting in your way, because it's none of our dang business, right? Building a better life. That's what we believe in. So that's happening, and it's free. And if you sign up, he will try to upsell you on things because that's John Bush. And that's why we love John Bush. He does say he's going to do that in advance. So full disclosure, if you sign up, expect him to want to upsell you something, and you might be really tempted to buy it. Check it out. Live Free Academy, link in the show notes, link in the comments. And if one of my link elves is in the live stream oh, you know what? I can do it. Control C, Control V. There you go. That's the link to sign up there. I also want to thank our two sponsors of today's show. The first sponsor is Agorist Tax Advice. Matthew Sursley from Agorist Tax Advice has put together a really cool webinar that is this coming Monday at 7 p.m. And if you want to check it out, this is what the registration looks like. I'm going to show you. It's how to use and benefit from tax advantage accounts. So this basically means putting money away before you pay taxes on it, blah, 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 like Roth IRAs, all sorts of different ways that you can pay less of your money to the government in taxes, which is what he's all about. That's 7 p.m. And if you go to agoristaxadvice.com/webinar, it'll take you straight to this page where you sign up for it. And then you can learn all about writing off those darn taxes, or keeping from having to pay as many taxes, rather, through using tax advantaged accounts. He's going to talk about different kinds of ones, so you understand the ins and outs of that, and you don't do it wrong, because you don't want to do it wrong. One time I put money in a Roth IRA, and you can take your money out of a Roth IRA, your initial contribution before you retire, without paying a tax penalty, because you've already paid tax on the money that goes in. If you take your interest out, that's a different story. But you have to leave your money in there for a certain amount of time. I don't remember how long. Maybe it's 5 years. Maybe it's 2 years. I don't know. He knows. He's probably going to talk about that. And I almost took it out to cover an emergency once. And then I realized if I did that, I was going to pay a penalty. So yeah, important to know how those things work. Our second sponsor of today's show is Hollow Roast Coffee, which is how I empowered today. Hollow Roast makes custom orders. After you order, we roast them and ship them out to you. And I use air roasting technology, which means it's a much smoother coffee experience. If what you want is the bitter bite of a burnt coffee, keep getting the Starbucks. But if you want to try something different, check out hollowroast.com. And of course, LFTM members, you get a discount. So log into the membership portal to get your discount. If you can't find it, let me know. We are actually in the process of rejiggering the portal to try to make it so you are connected with your information a little bit more efficiently. I've had a few people email because they had to figure out how to get on the webinar last week. We are going to make this better this year. That is my promise to you. With that, I do want to talk about our live stream schedule too. I'm going to previously record today's event so that I can be focusing on my book, because today was a dedicated book day and I was going to pre-record the event. And I did a whole hour of silence. And I just realized it 10 minutes before the show. So we're live streaming right now. And then tomorrow at 11:30, I'll be on the Live Free Academy's Freedom Cell Challenge. And then at 12:30, I will be on our Tuesday live with Alice and a really famous author who you may have read some of his books. Do you know who it is? That's right. Tomorrow I am live with Angry American and John Willis. I can't wait to have that conversation. Wednesday, we've got 2 p.m. with Matthew Hundley, and he's going to talk about what he did to build his greenhouse. He has like a nursery business that they've built out there. These are the guys who do Back to the Land. Really cool dude. I think you're going to enjoy that conversation. He's from Oregon too. So there we go. And then Thursday at 7, it is the SRF live stream, and Friday at 9:30 we have Homestead Happenings. Now Sunday, I think at 7 p.m. Central, Toolman Tim's doing his content creators roundtable. I'll be helping him with that. That's actually not on my weekly post I put out for the live stream schedule, but it should have been. I just kind of, for some reason, I thought maybe my schedule should be Sunday through Saturday, but then it's, so maybe we'll do that. We'll do a Sunday post about the live stream schedule, and it'll be Sunday through Saturday so that we get that next week. Anyway, it's going to be a good time. It always is with Toolman Tim. Now let's talk about Tales from the Prepper Pantry. This is where we talk about storing what you use and using what you store. And it has been a fun week. I am making food for the Living Free in Tennessee Spring Workshop, because I can pre-make some food. And one of the things we do is buy hamburger patties because they're already made, and it's easy for my kitchen crew to cook those. And this year I was like, I'm going to make the patties. So I am Sue Zoldak. I was unable to delete the failed stream on Facebook. That's what happened. So there is a second stream on Facebook right now that has the audio, but I tried to delete it from all of my accounts and it wouldn't let me. And that's because I spent this morning previously recording the live, which I did transparently say that. And then my audio failed and I didn't realize it until about 10 minutes ago. And so or 20 minutes ago now. So for some reason, Facebook won't let me delete that quote unquote live stream. So there'll be a whole hour of silence on Facebook. Please enjoy. Please enjoy. Anyway, so I need to weigh my hamburger packets because I thought they were 3-pound packages, which is what I asked for, which means 9 pounds is making 12-pound patties, which means each patty is 3/4 of a pound, which seems high for based on what it is. So my theory is they actually did 2-pound packages because they didn't believe me that I wanted 3-pound packages. So my theory is with their 1/2-pound patties, which makes more sense because I'm making pretty thick patties, and then they are so I'm getting 12 patties for 6 pounds of ground beef. And the benefit to this in flavor is I can mix the spices in there rather than like when we get them from the store, they don't have any flavor at all. And then you sprinkle spices over them. And I can't guarantee the quality of that beef. And I'm pretty excited to be doing like even one step closer to feeding as much food as possible as we've grown on the homestead or sourced from the Living Free in Tennessee network here locally. I also have a challenge in the form of organizing my upright freezers. So I've always audited it a couple times a year, and then I have one freezer where I put things that I need to use up soon. And I always put the dates on stuff. So it works pretty well. And I tend to keep things in sections, like all the beef is here, all the pork is there, all the lamb is there. And then the mixed bag of odds and ends that need to be used up. And then every week when I plan meals, I'm like, what needs to be used up? What do I have time to do? Because some stuff takes a lot of time. And that stuff, if it's a busy week, I won't do it. But then other things are pretty easy to cook. I just didn't. And this is particular. I am a poultry procrastinator because poultry does not taste great to me unless I do a lot of things to it at this point. So I am actually producing less poultry for us as a result of this. It's just like, why am I eating stuff I don't like? I mean, I don't hate it. I can make myself eat it. It's calories or whatever. But like, why do that to yourself? You only live once. You should always eat delicious food. So, as a poultry procrastinator, I end up with like, okay, this week, what poultry am I cooking and how am I going to cook it? Well, with my upright freezers, I stack things. And what I've noticed is like stuff is not necessarily square and it falls on my feet when I open the door. And that hurts because like heavy frozen blocks of frozen meat really hurt when they hit your toe. Or I have to jump out of the way really quick. And finally, I've got all these Home Goods gift certificates. I went to the store Home Goods and I got these heavy duty plastic bins. And the reason I got those is I have formerly used the Dollar Tree bins and they get brittle and fall apart. So I am currently testing some plastic bins from Home Goods. If those don't work, I'm going to wire. I'm going to go to wire like bins, like the square bins that you put in cubes. So it's all I need. And then I can be like, this is all steak and this is all ground and this is all chicken. And it'll be a lot easier to organize that. So there's always some organization project, I think, brewing in my pantry. That's just the way it is. Yesterday, I made flu stew. Flu stew from canned goods. This is why I can meat sometimes, because most of the time, meat just comes from the freezer and we eat it. I don't use my canned meats a lot in my day-to-day cooking. And because I can afford the electricity for refrigeration and I have the freezers, refrigeration in like the big picture sense of the word, in that it is freezing, it's making it cold. I store most of my meat in the freezer and I just have a lot of freezers. So if there were a catastrophic power outage that was going to go more than a few weeks, I would pare down the number of freezers because we can only run so many freezers on my solar system. And I would can the meat and then we would eat more canned meat. I don't have to do that because I live in the modern world with electricity at my house at this time. So I do keep canned chicken for flu stew though, because home canned chicken has been pressure canned and the flavor of stews, like chicken stew made from that, in my opinion, is superior to even making it from a raw chicken, A. B, you can also make it a lot faster. So in 45 minutes, I'll have a homemade chicken soup versus, slow simmering the bones to make the broth and then making the chicken stew, and that takes all day. And I got the call. So the standard in the holler is when you're sick and you live by yourself, Nighthawk, you let us know you're sick so we can check on you from time to time and make sure you're still sort of okay. Because if you need actual intervention, like we'd want to know that. He's like, so just letting you know, I'm sick. It's not that bad, but I have a fever and I have the flu and I got it from my boss and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, do you need anything? He goes, yeah, cough drops. So we brought cough drops. And then I was a little slow on the uptake, and it took me another day to say, do you have chicken soup? And he said, no. And I said, okay. So then last night we made with a jar of bone-in home canned chicken, a jar of bone broth, and a jar of green beans. I put that on the stove and I boiled it for 15 minutes. And then I took the bones out so that it would not be bony stew. There's always one bone I miss. And then I added a chopped onion and some green onions, and I salted it to taste and I peppered it to taste. So very simple ingredients. I could have added carrots or potatoes if I had them, but I don't. I guess I could have gone next door and gotten potatoes, but simmered for another 30 minutes with the onions, and then that was the flu stew from the canned goods. Very, very easy to make, and very nice to be able to do that in a situation where you don't have a lot of time and somebody can benefit from that. And of course, the nutritional benefits, I think, of having these home canned foods it is my opinion that you get like a better vitamin count on the fresh food, even fresh canned food, than you do on things that have been wandering around the grocery store for months or weeks or however long it is that it's been at the grocery store. So experts say that chicken stew helps cure the flu. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do think having nutrition is helpful when you're sick. So, and I, like, as much as I don't like poultry, I actually like chicken stew when I'm sick. Go figure. So I crave it, so I go for it. And then we are working on Prepper Pantry plans. That's P3 for those of you who are counting how many P's are there. Prepper Pantry plans. That's really easy to say 6 times fast. And it's because the pantry is a challenge to me right now. And it's a challenge because it has a plaster ceiling, and it once upon a time had a leaky roof. The roof is fixed and the plaster is crumbling, and the things that I put in the Prepper Pantry, like every so often, plaster bits just sort of rain down. I don't know why. And that means everything in there has to be in a closed plastic bin in certain places. And it's just dusty, and it gets dusty, and it's nasty, and I don't like it. And the long-term plan is that I want to put an addition on my house over there that will be a combination sunroom where I can put a swim spa, and then it'll flow into the Prepper Pantry. And if for some reason somebody who's mobility challenged needs to live at my house, could be me someday, could be my mom, could be anybody, it's all one level to walk from that sunroom into the bathroom, into the sit down shower. Like, all of that's one thing. That happens with an addition to my house, and that completely changes the roof line of the Prepper Pantry and how the Prepper Pantry would even be. So you got that, right? So the long-term place I want to put investment in my house is getting that done. But my mortgage is almost paid off right now, and I don't want to get a second mortgage to do it fast, because then I'd have a mortgage again. And I'm like, this close to being mortgage free, which frees up some money every month, which I can then use to further my progress in life. And it's not like I really need the sunroom right now. I'm not ready to buy the swim spa right now. There's lots of things going on related to this. And there are other priorities. Like, if we redo the workshop building, which is, like a wood workshop building, which would probably cost about $50,000, I'm guessing, then that is a place from which we can do things like make cabinets, make countertops, make rabbit hutches, make whatever, without it being up under Taj Mahal, or where I want to sit and enjoy, morning coffee or whatever, and where we do events. And then that makes it so that every time we have an event, we don't have to clean up the rabbit hutch project that's always going on under Taj Mahal. So you see how it's like all a matrix. But there's stuff in my living room I'm not willing to put away right now in the Prepper Pantry because it rains down plaster. So finally I asked Tactical, I'm like, if I just buy 5 sheets of melamine and just put it up there, you know what I mean? it'll keep the stuff from crumbling. I can even like tape it because I don't want to deal with drywall because drywall's heavy. And he was like, yeah, but wouldn't you want to use that money for the long-term project, which is the addition? And wouldn't it be more important to finish some of the things inside your house? I'm like, yes, but I can't put stuff away that's inside my house because I don't want to put it out there and I don't want to put it in my office. And here it is. And I could shove it in the basement over at base camp, and then we're going to have to move that when the spring workshop comes because that's our classroom. Like it's the perpetual problem. And so he was like, because like for $200, guys, I think I could get that done. So that may happen. And if that happens, then I'm going to do yet another deep clean of the prepper pantry because like twice a year I have to go in there and deep clean it and get all of the plaster that's fallen off of the ground and dust everything. And it's, not super fun. If we do that, hopefully that will stave off and make it less dusty. Because the thing that got me thinking about this is I did store a bunch of stuff in base camp's basement. Like it's still there right now and not away because of this issue, among other things. And it's not dusty and it's not nasty. It's just on the shelves. It's fine. It's like when normal people put things on shelves, they just stay there and they stay clean. Well, that's because normal people don't have plaster raining down on their stuff. So yeah, I think I'm probably going to go that direction. We'll see. I am going to finish painting the trim in my office first because once I paint the trim in my office, then some of the things that are out in my living room can be put away here. But tomorrow, Ken's coming to build the Murphy bed in here. So once that's done, so obviously I'm not painting the trim today, but it's about a 2-hour job. So I'll get it done sometime this week. And then I can put everything away in my studio completely. Because right now we've been in this temporary thing where like if I move the camera that way, you'll see my shelf of business things like, binders and whatnot. And then if you look over here, there's a chair that Tactical sat in. My printer station's over there. And then I just have furniture scattered on the other. Like what I'm looking at in front of my screen is furniture scattered that I'm not putting against the walls because the walls need to be printed. It's like the oasis or the island of furniture in the middle. And then like boxes of files and stuff and office supplies are out there that I took out of this shelf. So that shelf would be light enough to, it's a whole thing. So it's what I noticed is like you have these little choke points in your house that are in your way of getting things done. And then something else is in the way of getting that done. And it cascades. And every so often you find one that like releases all the pressure. And I believe that I have found another thing that will release all the pressure. I'm also getting new windows in here so that I don't have a humidity because I have aluminum windows in here that have failed. Like the 2 panes of glass have failed. So you have the fog. And I had actual ice on. I've always had actual ice on them. And I realized, when you have ice on them, it's also wet. And then it attracts mildew. So my new windows that are vinyl in the other part of the house don't have that issue. And I was like, oh, it turns out the vinyl windows don't let as much humidity in. So that's kind of fun. Figure it out together says my lack of Murphy bed is a current choke point. So is mine. The funny part about the Murphy bed is I'm using the actual bunk bed from my camper, from my glamper, as the Murphy bed. We just have to make some legs for it and a way for it to fold up and fold down because I'm not using that in the camper. But it makes it so when I sell the camper, I can put the bunk bed back in. It'll be all the original parts. And then I'll have to make another mattress platform for the Murphy bed. Okay. So that's what's going on in the prepper pantry. Next, we have the weekly shopping report from Joe, who said first stop was Dollar Tree. And they have finally restocked the drink coolers. And the food coolers are also in good shape, although it's hit and miss there. So the health aisle is pretty full. We skipped Home Depot on Saturday, but went to Aldi. The matzah is back in stock. And then they found everything they wanted. Staple prices are $1.78 for eggs. Whole milk is $2.93. Heavy cream $4.69. OJ $3.29. Butter $3.69. Bacon $4.25. Potatoes $3.99. Sugar $3.09. Flour $2.29. And 80% lean ground beef is $3.59. Do you guys remember $3.59? Do you guys remember when lean ground beef was 99 cents a pound? Ooh, so it's $3.59 at the cheap place. Interesting. Home Depot, next day, store looked normal busy. 2x4x8 is $3.25, and untainted regular gasoline is $3.63.9 a gallon. Why do I read this every week? I'll tell you why, because how do you keep track of inflation's impact on your actual life? It is by looking at the prices of the things that you actually use, because the index calculates based on one thing, but to us, what matters is fuel and food and housing and energy. And when I look at this list, so eggs used to be 89 cents a dozen at Aldi. This is the cheap place, right? Whole milk used to be $1 or $2 a pound, so that's 30%, right? Heavy cream used to be $2. It's $4.69. I don't know what OJ was. Bacon I saw as low as $2 a pound. It's $4.25. I don't know on potatoes because I don't buy them. So you can see over time how these things change. And Joe started just doing that for us because two things. He's commenting on what's on the shelves and what's not. So if there are any sort of supply chain issues, which early on when he started doing this, there were big ones. And two, he's also commenting on the cost of things. Yeah, hey Ken, I'm live. I'm going to see you tomorrow. Anyway. So Survivalizer says, question/product idea. Someday sell the inflation report like they do at antique stores for the 50s. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Okay, next up is the frugality tip. And the frugality tip is generated by listeners. So if you have one to send in, please email it to me at nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com or go to livingfreeintennessee.com and click on contact and fill it out. I don't have any in right now. So if you send one in, there's a really good chance you'll be on the air next week. Next up, we have Operation Independence. And this is where I talk about building local ongoing revenue into our lives or avoiding the need to pay a guy. Ken Esch is the guy I'm paying to build the Murphy bed tomorrow, and 100%, 150% worth every penny to pay that guy to do this project. I'm just going to leave that there. I am totally willing to earn $130 for every $100 I pay that man because he does really great work. And in the case of this Murphy bed, I want it to look a certain way, and I know it will when he makes it. So there we go. So that has nothing to do with my Operation Independence topic, though. And it's all about wood chip Mecca. Last Sunday at our weekly meeting, Tactical and I had a weekly meeting about what was coming up. And we looked at the weather, and it looked like the following Saturday, which was 2 days ago, it was going to be not raining. And we have needed to get wood chips in on my garden, because one of the ways that I don't have to earn money is by producing our own food here. And I see the benefit of that as being, I don't have to earn 30% more, basically pay taxes on it, and then buy food from somebody who paid taxes on it. And in this way, we are paying money to the government for every transaction, losing value as we go. A. B, I think it's more nutritious to get things that are fresher, that we have cultivated and as close to home as we can. I think that's more important than organic versus conventional growing. And so that's part of the lifestyle I've built, although I am an organic grower, of course. And in order to make this successful, one usually prepares garden beds in the fall for the next spring. You would like kind of put them to bed for the winter. They do their thing and they're gorgeous when you come out in the spring. That's the way it's supposed to work. And for one of my garden beds, that totally happened. But last fall, I was not driving out to wood chip Mecca and getting all the wood chips and bringing them back to put the garden beds to bed. So I ended up with cover crops, by which I mean I did broadcast some seeds out, but also things just grew. And the things that grow in my garden are chickweed and dead nettle, which actually do make a decent cover crop in that they're easy to eradicate and plant under. Okay. So I mean, I say that kind of jokingly, but also they are there. And Kermode Bear, welcome. I don't think I've seen you in the live stream before. So hey guys, welcome the new person. So I ended up planting garlic in the bed that we had prepped, and it was great. It was like soft butter, just hardly any work at all to put the garlic in that. And we ended up going out to Wood Chip Mecca. Now, Wood Chip Mecca is the local nickname for the property of a local arborist in our county who takes, like he cuts trees or trim trees or cuts trees down. He cuts them up into wood chips. And then he has this like several acres large area where he just puts piles of wood chips. And if you're in the know and don't cause any trouble, you can go out there and you can hand scoop your wood chips and use them on your garden or however else you want to use them. Okay. If you do cause trouble, it would cause this place to be closed. So we're actually pretty careful about who we tell where you're allowed to go do this. And it's a great way to get wood chips for your garden for free. And if you were awesome and had a tractor you could bring with you with a front scoop, you wouldn't have to hand shovel them. But we don't have that at this time. We actually have been talking about that lately. So it is a better two-person job than one-person job. Yes. Can I go out and hand scoop all of my wood chips in a load and take them back? Absolutely capable of doing that. Is it way better when two people do it because it goes twice as fast and is half the work? Absolutely, it is way better that way. So Tactical and I were like, okay, Saturday morning, we're going to get the trailer hitched up and we're going to go out and we're going to scoop the chips and we're going to come back and I'm going to set up the beds and he's going to do whatever he does in the pasture with the sheep and it'll be awesome. So we did that. And while I was there scooping chips, I was like, yep, it is 100% better with two people because I have done it by myself. And we got that done. And so that took us like an hour and a half or so. And then I got back to the garden and it wasn't like, hey, just throw wood chips on the beds. I'm like, no, actually, what would be really good would be to get some manure on these beds. So I moved a bunch of rabbit manure around on all the beds. And then I had wood mulch in bags that my neighbor dropped off. So then I put a thick layer of leaves from the woods on the beds. And then it was like super late and getting dark. And I hadn't even touched the wood chips from that morning. And I made a nice dinner of the aforementioned hamburger patties because that's a really good, like if you're running behind hamburger patties or hamburgers for dinner, like we don't eat bread, but we do like, we'll do it with, lettuce and other stuff on it, onions and such, and a nice saute and a salad. Super easy to cook. Doesn't even take as much time as going to order takeout and picking it up where I live. Cause by the time I drive, 25 minutes, I've lost, times two. The only thing is like the marina has Mexican food. So that I can spend 30 minutes. It's about 30 minutes to order, go get and bring back Mexican food from the marina. But like dinner was cooked in about that same amount of time. And we grow all this food here. And like the purpose of living on a homestead is to do that. So we did that. And then the next day we got the wood chips out. And so 4 out of my 8 rows have wood chips. Well, 3.9 of my rows. There's like 10% of one row. There wasn't enough. So one more trip to Wood Chip Mecca and we'll have the garden all ready for spring. So this is like a midwinter facelift. And this is something you can do still in Tennessee if you want to have a really nice garden in your garden space. If like I did, you didn't actually put your beds all the way to bed, so to speak, in the garden. And that time investment will yield food later, right? Like that's how I have tomatoes. When I was cooking, we actually had taco night last night, or taco salad night, because again, we don't eat tortillas. But we had taco salad night last night, and I always put a little bit of tomato in with the ground beef. And I was like, I took the jar of tomato sauce out of my fridge that I had used earlier in the week on something else, and I poured it over. And I thought I should make a video about like how we use canned goods in our day-to-day cooking, because that actually, like the tomato flavor with the peppers. So I have dried peppers, tomato, onion, garlic, cumin, and smoked paprika is what I used for the taco seasoning, basically, that we make, and then salt and pepper. And a little drizzle of tomato sauce adds a richness of flavor that's really nice. Like if you have dried tomatoes, you can add tomato powder. That's even better. But it's just as easy as like dump and it's done when you have canned goods. So that's cool. And then yesterday I actually spent $50 on seeds, which I almost never do, because one of the cool things about our network is that one of the people locally has a contact at a big box store where every year when they're done with their seeds for the year, they give them to her. And she donates them to 4-H and gives us all like big packages of them. And then when I'm giving seeds away, I'm like, hey, take whatever seeds you want. Because I'll use maybe 20 packets of the seeds that come in. And, when I'm growing spinach or whatever, I actually don't care what brand or what variety of spinach I grow. The things that I collect seeds for, I care about the variety. So like my tomatoes and my peppers and some of my squashes, I'm very careful about saving those seeds. But lettuces, I don't. I could. Radishes, I don't. I could. You know, over time, as I get plants that do really well here, that's when I'm like, okay, you did well, so I'll save your seeds. But things that are just kind of I haven't worried about that much. And that's because I take the approach on homesteading that there's only so much you can do in a day. And so do things that are most important to you. What's most important to me on a seed saving side are like I've been saving seeds for my tomatoes for over a decade now. I have a variety of seeds that is probably 160 years old. We call it the 140-year Timmy because when he got it, it had been saved for about 140 years locally. And that goes back to like the first tomatoes in the county that would have been brought in, right? So that is a variety I am passionate about maintaining that seed bank. And I do it with other local gardeners. So like if I fail one year, there's somebody else who has the seeds. And we have bailed each other out on that particular seed strain before. Although I'll say this, like I've never had it totally fail. I always end up, it's like, well, I got late breaking tomatoes as opposed to early ones. So anyway, I spent $50 because I want specific kinds of beans this year. And I wanted, I really like the seeds that are left at the store are not usually the pole beans. And I always want like the row with pole beans here and bush beans down low. I do a row like that and some other interplanted things. So how does that all help me save money? Well, it produces food and it also helps me stay healthy because of nutrition. So that's all that's happening there. With that, it's time for the main topic of today's show. And the reason you're actually here, I assume, and that is building community for the introvert. It's so cool that I learned how to spell introvert. I'm like correcting the typo as I go in my show notes. It's like, oh, there it's wrong again. Maybe someday I'll care about spelling. Maybe someday. I mean, I kind of care, obviously, or I wouldn't talk about it. But yeah, it was really funny when I saw the thumbnail image on today's live stream. And I was like, I totally spelled that word wrong and nobody squawked about it. So I know some of my editor friends are sending me personal private emails about it. I'll probably fix the thumbnail on the actual show notes. Probably be a good idea. Anyway, building community. Why are we talking about this today? Well, one reason we're talking about this today is I keep getting questions from people who just woke up. And what they woke up to is a world that's not like they thought it should be. And they feel alone and they feel like their priorities are not represented by people around them. And they want to tap into a community that they hear me talking about on this podcast. And then they tell me this, but I'm an introvert, as if that's a reason that you can't have community. So that's one reason. Another reason is if you take advantage of John Bush's Freedom Cell Challenge this week, you're going to probably meet some people. And when you meet some people, you'll start having solid relationships. And when you have core solid relationships, eventually community happens around you. Part of the reason that community has been so destroyed is that the approach that our society by design has taken to community is more of a top-down approach. So like your community is your school system, which is dictated by your address. Your neighborhood is your community. We're trying to design cities around to get work and shopping and living all in one place, even though that's not how the world works. Like people travel to jobs, right? And by nature of this force, we're pushing people together who may or may not want to associate with each other. And then at the same time, like on a propaganda level, trying to pit one against the other. And tactical, if you're hearing me, I could use a glass of water in the worst way. So I just heard tactical in my living room. So I'm hoping he heard that. So that Division while forcing people together adds tension. And if you think about how community developed over time, people aligned around core values, whether it be the core values of their church, whether it be the core values of their geographical location, or whether it be some other definition, the bowling club, because they love bowling, like whatever it is, like the tightest, strongest communities are voluntary. And to participate in a community, guess what? If you're an introvert, you got to make that choice to do it. The benefits of a true strong community are multifold. One, that's the only way we win. That's the only way we win the culture war that's going on right now, is by ignoring the division and by looking for the ways that we have things in common with people rather than in our differences, and by embracing what's truly important versus small things that are not important that we like to blow out of proportion. So on the one side, on the cultural side, that's how we win. Thank you so much. This right here, this glass of water, which is really a bottle of water, is the benefit of an introverted community. I only said that on my show because I could hear the echo of my voice coming out of his pocket when he walked in. I was like, oh, he's listening. That means he's going to hear me. The other benefits of a strong community are that we build each other up. We're there when there's a problem to help. And, I think about, like, in 2012, if I had died and you had been at my funeral, you would have heard about homesteading. You would have heard about my close friends. You would have heard about my work in public policy, maybe, if you heard about work at all. You know what you would not have heard? You would not have heard that any stories about helping people change their life, helping people connect and build a movement, helping people opt out of the system and build their life the way they want it. And if I were to die tomorrow, I think you would hear that. You would hear about Self-Reliance Festival, maybe not the festival itself, but the things that have come out of that. And the purpose of community is not to have a better funeral. Like, I'm not like living my life to have an awesome funeral. I won't be there. I won't care. But when you think about how you make decisions on your day to day, are you making decisions to survive, or are you making decisions to thrive? And if you're making decisions to thrive, you're making decisions that help not only you, but those around you. Because when we all do better, the whole world is better. And then it's easier for the next people, right? So the strong community, the benefit of a strong community is it's there when you're down, and it's there, and you're there when other people are down. And that's the part that they don't talk about when they go top down with community. It's like, well, we're there to help you because this is your community. It's like, no, actually, it's way more important that we're there to help you than you're there to help us. And if you see it that way, everybody builds, everybody gets better. So what is the problem for developing community for an introvert? Well, isn't it obvious? What do introverts do? We get our energy from being alone. And when we're around people, we may have fun, but we need some time alone to regenerate. If you want to ask me how I get my energy back, you're going to find out that I swim laps in a pool by myself. I walk my dogs because they don't count as people alone in the woods. I go to the garden, sometimes barefoot. I like to spin wool. I like to cook really good food in the kitchen from scratch. Like when I used to do, like my college roommate, when it was finals week, she's like, it's the best week ever, because I'd be like, here's lasagna, here's homemade bread. I'm like literally studying while cooking because I had to be doing something with my hands. So that's just me. Sometimes I just go read a book, and it ain't a self-help book, guys. It's full-on fiction. I'm actually reading a book right now that I really like. It's fiction. I don't know the title of it, but it's about people with dragon blood who are like magicians or whatever, and they like this lady wakes up after 300 years being locked away, like cryogenically locked away, and witches are put to death and blah blah blah. So anyway, pure on fiction, but it's a pretty good book. And I like reading good books. That's why I'm excited to talk to Angry American tomorrow, because his books are good. He writes a good story. It's not just like prepper porn, it's like a good plot. And that's what I care about when I'm trying to regenerate. All of those things are done alone. All of those things are done alone. So, how do you build community if the way you regenerate is alone? Well, guys, hate to say it, you decide. That's right. You make the decision. If you don't decide to build community, you're not going to build community unless you happen to marry an extrovert who does it for you. Right. And then, like, that's not fair. You should help them. If you're married, you should help them. And I understand the anxiety associated with social situations for some introverts. I used to have that anxiety. I have mostly gotten rid of any of that. And that has taken years of work and tricking myself. Basically, a lot of my stuff that I have fixed psychologically, I have done by identifying that it exists and doing things to either address and get past, or more often fake it till I make it, like reframe or reprogram my perspective on things. And that sounds like magic, but it's not magic. And that when I say it in words, it sounds easier than it is to do. But I'm saying that because a lot of the advice that comes from here will have to do with changing yourself. And I understand when I say the words, they come out quickly and in a nice little tidy box in this podcast. But the doing of the thing takes more effort than that. So, how do you get started building community as an introvert? First, stop being a perfectionist and set yourself some realistic expectations. If you just woke up to what's going on in the world and you've realized that you need to be part of a community, probably what's driving you right now is fear, which is something that would be great if you could get away from. Again, easier said than done. One way to do that is turn off the news and stop watching it. If there is a comet headed for you and about to kill you, you're totally going to know whether or not you watch the news. Therefore, news is noise. So turn off the news for a month and then reassess if you're wanting that in your life again. And it's very interesting when you do that, how you still keep abreast of current events anyway. But it does give you perspective on current events, because anything in your life that you can't influence directly, if it's affecting you emotionally, is taking away from you building community. It's taking away from you building your life. And if you've just woken up and decided to start being part of a community, well, guess what? If you go to one event and meet some people, you have started building community, but you have not found community, because it takes time. It takes time to develop relationships. It takes time to establish trust. We've got somebody here who says, took me 2 years to make friends with my neighbor, 1 year to participate in this chat. That's probably somebody who's been watching from afar. You know what? Good for you. That right there is what I'm talking about. Take a step towards getting to know people, whatever that step is, and set realistic expectations, and then move one step at a time. What is not going to happen is that you go to an event and end up part of an intentional community next week, unless that intentional community is letting people in super fast and churning through people, and then you might be lost in the churn. Like that's not reaching your goal of community. That's just taking action to take action. Number 2, embrace the uncomfortable. I did not say embrace the suck for a reason, because it doesn't suck. Thank you, Anarchy, for the super chat. Hello from Minnesota. Yay. This is why I don't have ads on, because you guys do stuff like that. So embrace the uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable to face down social anxiety. It can be uncomfortable to be in a room full of extroverts and go talk to people. It can be uncomfortable to even leave your house and go to an event. All of those things really help you build community. So you need to get out of your box. You need to get out of your house and do the best you can do to go talk to people and go get to know people, because community does not happen without people. And the only way you're going to know ultimately is in person. What this can look like is doing something like Bush's Freedom Cell Challenge and then ending up at Exit and Build later this year, or coming to Self-Reliance Festival and choosing just one person to talk to. Find one person and all the people that you like to talk to and get to know them. For some, that can be really uncomfortable. Some of you who are introverted are a little more comfortable talking to multiple people. You might come out of that with 3 good relationships. The deal is come out with at least one good relationship or one person you want to follow up with, and then do the next thing that's uncomfortable. Follow up. Don't worry about if you're going to be bugging them by sending an email or bugging them by sending a text message. Like, just send it. They won't answer. The worst thing that happens is they don't answer you. Or they tell you to F off. They probably won't tell you to F off. They might not answer you. And if they don't answer you, it's probably not because they don't want to hear from you. It's because they got, like, things get lost, especially in digital communications. So if they don't answer you, follow back up. That's okay. If they don't answer you a lot, eventually move on to somebody else. That wasn't a good fit. That's fine. But if you do that, you've gotten started. Now, the next step is to find your tribe. And that's where you develop the deeper relationship. It's really funny. I'm good at meeting people, but after that, it's hard to find and develop deeper. Any advice? You have to do it with purpose. That's the next step, right? What I have found that has worked well for me is I befriend an extrovert. And I don't do this like, there's an extrovert, I'm going to go be friends with them because they can help me. Like, we help each other. When an introvert and an extrovert are friends together, you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get the introvert's assessment of people, which we tend to read body language better than the extrovert in general. Not all. I mean, I know one who reads really well. He was telling me what all my tells were the other day. It was kind of funny. And introverts can sense things going on. Part of why interactions at events can be exhausting for us is that people say one thing with their mouth and something else with their body, and that bothers us. They usually don't know they're lying, guys, when they do that. They are lying to themselves. But it can be tiring because you're like, what do they really mean? What's the hidden meaning? And then if you're like me, you're like, I just need to know what you mean, or else I don't know what you mean. And if you expected me to read into what you said, then I have no idea what you meant. That is me. And if I've ever offended somebody because I didn't understand what you were trying to tell me, understand that I am a literal person and I don't read into things. And if you needed me to, I'm sorry, it ain't going to happen. So, I early on in this adventure, I'd already started the podcast, which was part of what started the LFTN community in Tennessee. And I had already had an event here. I finally made a decision that if my podcast was going to grow and if the community was going to get healthier, I had to branch out. And I went to Jack Spirko's Survival Podcast spring workshop. He used to do a spring workshop. Now I do that for our community because now we have a shared community. I met Sean Mills from Hack My Homestead, who is an extrovert. And because I met him, like, he saw me present, he was like, living free in Tennessee. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, my wife listens to that. And then next thing I know, he and his wife are stopping by my house. We had a great time. We had like dinner. We sat around the fire, drinking beer, singing songs. And other people from Tennessee started hanging out. And we were just hanging out. And that time hanging out, that time invested hanging out, is why we have a decent relationship now. And we've been through some hard times and we've been through some less hard times together. Like, the thing is, we were a bunch of doers And so we didn't just want to stand around. So we started working on stuff. Right. And so, in answer to your question, how do you develop the deeper relationships? You have to invest time. And that means, like, hey, let's go on a hike. Hey, do you want to come help me build my garden? Hey, can I come help you put your raised beds in? Whatever those things are, when you nurture a relationship, just like you do for a spouse, like, you have to invest time in it or it goes away. And if any of you are like I am, like, I can make a very deep relationship with somebody, and then if they don't reach out to me, then I may or may not reach out to them. It doesn't mean I don't like them. It doesn't mean that I don't think they're important. It means that if it's not written in my calendar, it may not happen, even though I do want to talk to them. Like, I literally got a text message from somebody. Oh, Nancy. I've been thinking about Nancy for like 2 weeks. And this weekend she texted me something and I was like, I've been thinking about you. Like, I don't know why I didn't text her while I was thinking about her. That's what I should have done to help keep that relationship better. But I didn't. And then she reached out to me and I was like, oh, I'm so glad you reached out because I've been thinking about you. Okay. So how do you develop deeper relationships? Don't do what I did and not text Nancy when you're thinking about Nancy. Like, text her something and say, hey, I'm thinking about you. I don't know why. I hope you're okay. Right. And I think what it is sometimes we feel when we're in our solo regenerate mode, we feel a little intruded on when people reach out who we're not ready to talk to and want something from us. And so then we're like extra super cautious about reaching out to other people. And then what that looks like is that, uh, what the video looks like is that the sun came out and I still don't have blackout curtains in. Those are totally going in really soon. But what that looks like to the other person is that we don't care. And then they give up and they stop putting any effort in. And the next thing you know, you don't have the deeper relationship. So the next thing you do, like, find an extrovert. So the combination of me as the introvert and Sean as the extrovert in our network has been really helpful for keeping things going here. And there are a whole lot of other inner circle people. So from there, start establishing your inner circle. And I'm talking 3 to 8 people who you are really good close friends with. Like, these are the people who, if they show up on your doorstep, they can come spend the night no matter what if they need to, unannounced, right? That kind of close. Like, Sean and his wife could either one separately or together could show up, and, like, if somebody's in my guest room, they can have the couch or the camper or like whatever. We'll work it out. We'll find a cot. That kind of level of inner circle is what you're looking for. And that takes time. So that goes back to establish reasonable expectations. You need to invest the time, but understand that it takes time. And sometimes you're going to start with somebody and, like, yo, man, not great. This is not a great fit. And then you just kind of go on to something else. That's okay. That's part of building community, is learning how to be around people that maybe you don't 100% agree with, and being able to organize around core things that are important and forget about worrying about the differences. And B, sometimes, like, just personality fits aren't there. Like, I have people like that in my life who are in our community who they probably don't like me much and I don't like them much, and it doesn't matter. I'll still support what they're doing. I don't have a tangible reason why. I'm just like, wow, our energies just don't flip and match, and that's just not going to be my close friend, and that's the way it goes. So that's sort of the getting started on building community as an introvert. So now what? You go that far, guess what? Host things. Yeah, you heard me say that right. Host things at your home. That means letting people into your space. You're an introvert. You probably also recharge from being in your home, comfortable environment. You know how you can be comfortable around people? You can have them in your environment. That means letting people into your environment. That can be scary. Does not have to be scary. You'll worry about them judging you. They're not judging you. If they are, then they don't fit in your community and they can go away. But doing that means you'll be at your best when you're around the community, right? And you can set very clear boundaries in your space. Like when we do events here, people don't come into my house. It's not that my house is a big secret. Like people have been in my house, like occasionally, like the Christmas event, people do come into my house. But when we do the spring workshop, nobody comes into the house. I got the kitchen staff in here. They're doing kitchen staff things. You will be in their way if you come into my house. We have an outdoor space. We have a classroom. We have outdoor infrastructure. Like all of that's fine. You're not coming into my house. And that's clear from the start. And if anybody's ever been offended by that, they didn't come over, right? That's okay. The fact that people are even here is great for me because I'm more comfortable on my homestead than anywhere else on the planet, pretty much. Next thing, and this one, you're not going to like it. You need to go to things. You need to leave your house and go to things. I don't care how socially anxious you are, go to things. Find a thing you can go to and go. Make it a goal to meet 1 to 3 new people at the thing. And you do this by asking them questions. If you are socially awkward in small talk and conversations, then you list some questions in advance that you can ask. Hey, where are you from? What brought you to this event? Which speaker are you most excited to see? Have you been to the vending space? Which vendor did you like? Why did you like them? What got you into preparedness or homesteading or metalworking or whatever you're going to? Because it doesn't have to all be in our prepper world, right? It does not have to be all in our prepper world. This is going to make some really terrible looking shorts, Letty. That's all I can say. So that is what you got to do. And that is back to embracing the uncomfortable. Make sure you do that 3 times a year, 4 times a year. Like put it on your calendar 4 times a year. I am going to go do this thing. I'm going to go out to something, whatever it is, and be in person. Homesteader Alliance meeting, Self-Reliance Festival, Exit and Build Land Summit, LFTN Spring Workshop, cheese making class, poultry processing class, solar build, something. Go to something. And what will happen over time is you'll find some things that you like going to on a regular basis, right? And you'll meet people, and over time you'll develop that inner circle. Build in recovery time when you do. So I'm going to a trapping class on Saturday. This is one of my things. I do this. Like I run events and I still am like, I have to go to 4 events every year. Like it's a penance. It's never a penance, but I choose to go to 4 events to expand the network because I always meet people at events. And Brad's putting on this trapping class next Saturday. And it's kind of an interesting topic I don't know anything about. So I'm like, oh, hey, I'll go learn something new. So I'm going. And then Sunday, I am not doing anything because I'm building in recovery time from having had to be around people. Now, I do have a live stream Sunday night with Tim, but that's fine. Just know when you commit to doing the thing, commit to recovering from the thing, because if you don't commit to recovering from the thing, you're not as good a friend to people. You're not as good a friend to yourself, and it can actually negatively affect your health. Like you regenerate alone. So go regenerate alone after you've been around people, right? Yeah, things like SRF are a great way to meet people you may have talked to on the internet. Exactly. I think I've met you in person, right? Are you the person who bought coffee by paying with crypto yesterday? I think you are. You'll tell me if you are. Sometimes, guys, you guys have nicknames and I know your name, and I'm like, I don't know who's who. That is what it is. So, track your connections. And this goes back to developing the deeper relationships. People you align with, you need to be intentional about reaching out to them or talking to them or developing a relationship with them. And if you have a history of not being able to do this well, you may need to go fix some things in yourself. You may have a fear of rejection that's keeping you from making close relationships. You may have something in your past that you're bringing forward into relationships and it keeps it from happening. And if that's the case, you got to fix you before you can help anybody else. And I know because I have invested in fixing myself in a lot of ways, right? By going to psychologists. And oh yeah, you won the year of coffee. Okay. So you are coffee related. but you're not the person yesterday. So I know exactly who you are now. um, and that's probably the most important thing you can do for your future happiness. I just finished reading Peter Attia's book, Outlive, and his last chapter was on mental health. And he told his story of some terrible things that happened to him as a young child that brought forward into his adult years, made it so he almost lost his marriage and had some pretty bad anger issues. And he talked about what he did to address it very openly. We don't talk about mental health very openly. I talk about mental health openly, but most people don't because it's a thing to be ashamed of. But how the heck are you going to fix it if you don't talk about it and don't admit it? It's hard to admit. Like, we exist every day and think we're fine. And then one day we realized in hindsight we weren't fine. So the sooner we can realize that and address some of these things we're bringing forward, the better we are. And if deeper relationships are being inhibited because of something that you can fix it, because deep relationships with people, meaningful, trusting relationships, are fantastic. They're so good for you. Even if you are an introvert, they are so very good for you. So definitely do that. So be ruthless, though. And this is what you need to be ruthless about in any community. The thing is that energy vampires are a problem. There are people who aren't good for you. There are people who take from you and never give. There are people who are toxic. There are people who are narcissistic. There are just some people who are not good people. And if you want to build a strong community, you need to very much vastly empower the people who are doers, who are positive, and get rid of the people who are the opposite of that. And I don't mean like somebody's got some things going on in their life and they're just not super fun to be around for a period of time. I mean the bona fide takers. And the way you do this, when you empower your doers and when you set a standard of our community does these things, usually the energy vampires or the takers don't stay around very long because they're expected to work in our community. And if you don't work in our community, you're just not getting anywhere, and then you become bored and you leave. And you go somewhere where people can be concerned about poor you and take care of you and whatever. That doesn't mean we don't help each other, by the way. There's a line there, but you know what I'm talking about. It's the drama. It's like I as a leader of LFTN, when there are personal issues between people in our community, I stay out of it completely because it's up to those people to work it out, whoever it is. And when people try to bring me into it, I still stay out of it. The only way I would get involved in something drama between two people would be if somebody was like, you know what? I had this interaction with, let's just make up a name, Thelma. I had this interaction with Thelma. I was a real jerk. I want to apologize to Thelma. Would you reach out to Thelma and see if they're willing to hear, if she's willing to hear my apology? In that situation, I might reach out to Thelma if I know Thelma well and say, like, Jill wants to apologize to you. Would you be willing to do that? Blah, blah, blah. And if Thelma says no, I won't fault Thelma and I will stay out of it some more, right? I don't get involved in the poopy head dialogues. Like, this person's a poopy head, that person's a poopy head, all the poopy heads, right? That gossip thing, it is tempting I think by human nature, it's tempting for all of us to get involved in gossiping. And it is a really good idea not to be involved in that because, like, when you know somebody who says stuff about other people behind their back and never to their face, they're probably saying stuff about you behind your back. So when somebody's saying stuff behind somebody's back that is not like fact based, then I'm learning as much about you as I am about somebody else. And the other part of that is taking people based on their action, not based on what everybody else says about them. I have found when I take people based on their face value and on their actions that usually if there is a reputation with the person, often that reputation is wrong. And if it's somebody who I develop a deeper relationship with, eventually we probably talk about it because it bugs them that they have the bad rap, right? And they'll be like, this is what happened. Or they might be like, I used to be a big jerk and this is like all the people I hurt, and so that's why I have that, but I changed my ways and that was 10 years ago. That sort of thing happens. I have had a couple of very prominent content creators talk about other people behind their back to me and caution me not to have relationships with those people in a very negative way. Now, I've had some friends who are content creators say, this is what happened to me with that person. So, like, pay attention. That's different than nondescript, non-specific critiques of people who I don't know behind their back, undermining their future. In that situation, the person doing the undermining is the person I don't invest in, and I don't let that keep me from getting to know the other person. Now, if my experience with the other person is they don't do what they say or whatever over time, then of course that happens. And I think about this a lot because it's happened with one specific person that people gave me nondescript cautionary stay away from them input, and I have had probably 200 interactions with the person, some of them business, and 100% of the time they've done what they said, and they followed through on what they've done. And in the 2 or 3 times where they overcommitted and did not deliver on time, they told me they weren't delivering on time, and they delivered ultimately. And so all the other that person's dishonest, that person lies stuff that came from that other person, I'm actually not talking to the person who basically slandered the person who's followed through, because I think they were just undermining him and choosing sides in a divorce situation, honestly. I don't even think they know they're doing that, but they're doing that. And that's why if you're building a strong community, you need to go based on some merit and not just based on, reputation or whatever. Not that reputation isn't important, but people get jealous and undermine people. And it's your job to cut through that crap. Be ruthless. Focus on your doers. You'll find that your doers are the best people to have around, whether or not everybody loves them. So how did this happen in Tennessee? Well, I started the podcast in 2016. And as a result of that, people started interacting with me, and that was kind of cool. And then we started doing meetups, and we had a really big meetup here on the solar eclipse that happened. And that's when I learned that it's a really good thing I didn't charge for the solar eclipse, because my property was not ready for an event, but I really wanted to be an event center. And then sometime right after that, I went down to Jack Spirko's, and I gave a presentation on roasting coffee, and I met Sean Mills, the extrovert, and he started coming over. And I already had some people from the Eclipse party, and we all kind of became friends. And we eventually morphed into the Tennessee GSD crew, in part because they helped me get my property ready for my first event here. And so we did a lot of cleanups, and we built a composting house, and we did all this really cool stuff. And then we had our first workshop. And I remember when I'm like, I'm doing this workshop, I announced it, and 2 days later, Sean was in my doorstep going, how can we make this the one everybody goes to in Tennessee? And I'm like, well, we got to get the infrastructure ready. We got to go for it. And he and all of the other GSD crew is the people who helped me make it the spring workshop. Like, Jack does the fall, I do the spring. It's how it works. And as part of that, whenever places became available for rent near here, people who knew me through being in the GSD crew, through coming to events, people who I knew well enough to trust to tell them something was for rent next door, they rented the places. And next thing I know, I had a community of family around me, families who became my family, like my chosen family, in the form of the Holler neighbors. And then gosh, 2020 happened and like some things got really weird, but we already had the holler neighbors. And as part of what happened in 2020 is it got kind of freaky around here. We started like hyper sharing how to take care of yourself and like things like how to catch wild yeast to make sourdough bread because yeast wasn't available at the store and things like that. Like we did all sorts of it, how to grow your vegetables inside really easily because they were out of lettuce at the store. And I had a lot of more speaking gigs all the time. And then Jack's like, let's do this Unloose the Goose thing. So I came on that and I got to know John Bush, who did the Freedom Cell Network. And as part of the Freedom Cell Network, I realized, hey, we can organize beyond this. And we started doing events all over the state and helping Freedom Cells get started that way. Some of them probably don't like me anymore because we'll leave that one for a different time. But some of them do. And we all kind of like cross pollinate and each area does its own thing. And next thing you knew, like by that time, Tennessee had the GSD crew, we had the holler neighbors, we had Freedom Cells popping up everywhere. I was talking to this dude named Brad, who years ago had started mutual assistance groups or MAGs. And then I kind of got tapped into the Freedom Cell in Chattanooga. And like that crossed over, and I started going out, and we had this like unified thing happening, but different everywhere. And then I got to know John Willis, who helped me build Holler Roast way better. And then we both had network. We had the SOE community, we had my community, we had TSP's community. We're like, hey, let's do an event, Self-Reliance Festival. It happened. People came and we cross-pollinated all those communities. And then as a result of that, SRF became kind of cool. And then we got to know Bear from Bear Independent, and we got to know the Midwest Preparedness Project and Kentucky Sustainable Living and a whole bunch of other love. Mike Shelby from Forward Observer, like all of these cool people, Joel Salatin, like all of this cool stuff started happening, and more people came together in a positive community. That's how an introvert got that done. She did not do it alone. You don't have to do it alone, but you do have to do it. You have to get out of your box and you have to start. And you have to be willing to schedule those text messages if you're not going to remember to, just so you reach out to the people who you actually like. I learned that with my college roommate. Like, it had been years since I talked to her, and then I was so embarrassed I hadn't talked to her. I didn't talk to her, and then one time she texted me, and I'm like, let's just have a phone call. I'm like, hey, man, I'm sorry. I think about you all the time, and I should call you, and I haven't been, and I hope we're still friends. She's like, I love you no matter what. And I was like, great. So that's what people are really thinking when you don't reach out to them. By the way, when you've built up that whole construct in your head about not reaching out, just reach out. Just reach out now. And if they're offended, they're offended. That's the worst thing that can happen is they're offended, and you have to hear that they're offended and whatever. That's, it doesn't feel good for a minute, but at least you reached out. You did what you could at that point. So some troubleshooting things. If you decide to host an event at your house, the first thing you're going to worry about besides having your house is what if nobody shows up? I've been doing the spring workshop for 7 workshops, 8 workshops. Anyway, I don't know. I should know that number off the top of my head. I don't. And every time I put tickets on sale, I'm like, what if nobody buys a ticket? So we're sold out as usual. Tell that voice to shut up. The word, okay, so let's say you do have nobody show up. You tried, you learned. You'll either learn it was the wrong day or you were talking to the wrong people or something, or it was the wrong topic for a meetup. Okay, move on. If you've already got that inner circle, though, at least somebody from your inner circle will show up and you can just have fun with them. And then this goes back to establishing expectations, right? Where is your expectation that you're going to have a 60-person event like Jack Spirko's? Or is your expectation that you're going to have, 5 really solid people over for a potluck? You can start small and build. Start small and build. And if only a few people have RSVP'd to something, do it anyway. Just do it anyway. It's fine. Do things, show your project, put pictures up on the internet, then people become more interested. And then next time you have 5 people. And then next time you have 10 people. And then next time you have 20 people. And pretty soon you're like Dawn Gorham over in Dixon County with the Homesteaders Alliance, where she gets like 50 people at her place at least once a month. That's pretty darn cool. They're doing great things over there. She's building community. She's doing it by creating opportunity for people to get together and connecting them. The other thing that comes up, what if I'm not good enough? I'm not a good speaker. I'm not a good whatever. Again, you got to tell that voice to shut up. we've wasted too many years of our lives telling ourselves bad stories about ourselves. Do you want to spend the rest of your life telling yourself that you're not good enough, or do you want to go do the things you're good enough at? Do you just want to start? Because everybody's not good at something the first time they do it. And over time, as you do it more and more and more, you get better at it. Like I'm a better podcaster today than I was 8 years ago when I started this podcast, right? Yeah, I 100% am. I'm a better speaker. I'm a better person. I'm a healthier person. And if I hadn't started this podcast, I probably wouldn't have been. And so it was because I made a choice. You can make the same choice. It's not going to happen fast. It's just going to happen one step at a time. That's why I'm writing the book, My Three Things. Like that book is about that, right? It's about doing it. What if I'm too intense for somebody to have a friendship with? I am way too intense for a lot of people to have a friendship with. The people who are friends with me are like, what are you talking about, intense, Nicole? Like I had this conversation with Steve Eversole. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, that's because I'm not too intense for you. But I'm too intense for a lot of people. And that's okay. They can go hang out with less intense people, and then the intense people can hang out with me, and we all get along, right? When you get to this point where you can talk like that and actually feel it, it's actually kind of nice. So you don't have to pretend not to be something you aren't. Just go be yourself. Other troubleshooting? Well, this is awkward. You know what I'm talking about, right? Social interaction feels awkward to you? Well, this is awkward. Just be our awkward friend. Most of the time when we have awkward friends, we actually think it's kind of cute that they're awkward. I'm sorry, you didn't want to be cute, but you're cutely awkward. Embrace your cutely awkwardness. It's fine. You'll find that it feels a lot less awkward over time as you're like comfortable with yourself. It's fine. We have many different personality types in our community, and that is how it is. And they're all better at different things. Like I know somebody in our community who does not talk much, except for when you get him going, he does talk a lot, like on a specific topic. But in a group, you won't see him saying much. He's the one to ask for any observation about something. Rachel says, can I just be the weird nerd? Yes, 100% weird nerd. It's all you, Rachel. He will have observed interpersonal things that none of the rest of us who were talking the whole time saw. Or he'll be like, you know what? That person's got something going on in their life. Somebody needs to reach out to them. Because he doesn't talk much and he's observing. That's his superpower. So it's not as awkward as you think. Let's put it that way. Here's one. What if somebody I trust betrays me? Now, this one hurts. It does hurt when you finally give your trust to somebody and they betray you. It also happens. It happens because people make mistakes. Even whether it be the person who betrays you or you for trusting the person. But if we always bring that what if fear forward into other relationships, it will just keep happening again and again because we'll choose people to trust who we shouldn't trust because we're bringing our baggage forward, right? We're bringing the negative forward. So we have to learn how to be like, yeah, man, that one hurt. What can I learn from that? And how can I avoid that in the future? It's not easy. It's gonna happen in any community. It just is. And one of the things I've learned most about that is when somebody does betray me or is not loyal, the faster I can honestly forgive them for it and move on, the better off I am. Because they don't even know that I care long term. They're not thinking about me at all. And so if I'm obsessing on it, it keeps me from moving forward. So if I can forgive them, then things are better. And in some cases, I have forgiven people and years later seen them and we're friends now. Like it was because they betrayed me, quote unquote, in my perspective. because they were having a little meltdown or they were overwhelmed or there was something going on in their life. They didn't really mean to. And because I honestly forgave them, when I saw them again, I didn't bring that forward and we worked it out. We talked about it. We moved on. And the more you can do that, the better. Does that mean let somebody punch you in the nose over and over and over? No, you don't need to do that to you. That's not empowering the doers and getting rid of the takers, right? That's a taker. Somebody who punches you in the nose over and over again, you probably shouldn't give them your energy. You got to cut through the chaff, though. You got to cut through the chaff. Those are all of my thoughts. Again, avoid the gossip, man. The person gossiping is usually more the problem than the person being gossiped about. And that's a hard lesson that we've all had to learn the hard way. With that, I hope this helps you get started on being involved in community. If you like the show and want to support the work we're doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at hollerroast.com because it's delicious. 2, do consider signing up for that Freedom Cell Challenge if this is a topic that interests you. I've got a link in the show notes. I think I still have copy paste link for the comments here. Let's see. Paste. Oh, yes. Sweet. So sign up. The first day was today. You've already missed that. I assume there are recordings you can look at, but maybe not. Tomorrow I'll be live at 11:30. But do me a favor and invest in building your community, whatever that looks like for you. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week.